Hi, I'm your host Satwan, and welcome to this episode of The Payments Show. If you'd prefer to listen to this episode on your podcast app, simply visit thepayments.show in your web browser, and you'll get a list of all the episodes and links to Apple and Spotify. If you would like a PDF transcript of the episode, please visit thepaymentsshow.substack.com, where you'll be able to download it. Thanks, and enjoy the episode. Das, welcome to The Payment Show.
Thank you, Sat. Happy to be here.
Great to have you on. You're joining from Sully, California. Are you near Silicon Valley?
I am in the heart of Silicon Valley, San Jose, California. I've been here 20 years.
Right. So true vet in the local area then.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick intro, Das, and then we'll get into it. So Das, you are the co-founder and head of product at Nextuple. Is that how I pronounce the company?
Yes.
And Nextuple helps retailers transform their sort of legacy omnichannel order management systems using microservices. So I'm just going to stop right there and ask, is that a good way of introducing your company? Did you want to expand on that?
I would say Nextuple is reimagining the distributed order management space, and we're looking at that from a composable commerce standpoint. We're looking at microservices, basically the same order management, but reimagine and looked at it differently. So that's our mission.
Okay, great. Your solution, from the research I've done and for the info your team's provided, is really optimal for companies that have a digital and a physical space to sell goods and services from, right?
That's right. I think an ideal Nextuple customer would be somebody with online and physical stores and and e-commerce. That is going to be fulfillment complexity, meaning you're trying to distribute and ship orders from multiple fulfillment centers, so your stores as fulfillment locations, as well as you're trying to grow your online business. That would be an ideal customer for Nextuple.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of really difficult problems that your solution solves. So I'm going to kick off with setting the scene here with some stats first of all.
Okay.
So in terms of conversion, your data's found that there's a 5 to 10% uplift when e-commerce sites show a specific delivery date versus a standard kind of will deliver in 5 to 7 days. And but yet less than 40% of retailers are making accurate delivery promises, but more than 80% of customers demand one. And I definitely fall in that category. I want to know when things are going to show up. And your solution solves some really hard problems. And it's quite fascinating to learn about them from your website. So inventory challenges, that can be caused by latency, poor inventory syncing, multiple systems that are siloed, and then even something as simple as click and collect, which I really like to do when I'm buying online. It's not just the staff being in the store, but wait times, consistency, where to collect things. There's the whole heap of challenges there. So maybe you want to touch on those and go through the priority of the kind of problems you're solving for your customers every day.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a pretty shocking stat that only 40% of retailers are offering a precise delivery date. And about 10 years ago, that would have seemed normal. But these days, when you look at it, the bar is being raised by the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. Therefore, there's an opportunity out there for retailers to get more precise and accurate about their delivery promise and retain their customers and increase conversion. So I think I'll go back to maybe one of the stories I have. An example is from my past. This a few years ago. I was working with a big retailer. I was shopping for myself from the retailer's website, and I was ordering a mouse for a computer, my laptop. And I remember distinctly, this was end of March, and I got a delivery date promise of April 6th to 8th is when I can expect the order to get to my home. And in 2 days, April 2nd, I received the order. It got me thinking. It was a good 6 days before the promise, and how many such orders are being fulfilled much earlier than promised to the customer. So I started looking at the data at this point of time to see, okay, what does it look like in terms of promise versus delivery? And I saw that 70% of these retailers' orders were actually being shipped sooner than what is promised to the customer. And of course, it seemed common sense to me that if you were able to give a better promise, you can improve the conversion, and more people are going to buy from you because it's going to get to you sooner. And sure enough, we did a study with this, and we ran a test with, so the product manager in me, the creator in me, started thinking about an alternate solution that would actually calculate and give a precise delivery promise. And we started testing that with small percentage, 1%, 2%, and 5% of the orders. And it was fascinating to see that right away, just with a day pulled in the promise, a day shaved off your order to delivery lead time, we saw that there is 3% to 5% improvement in conversion. And this varied by the categories. Certain categories like electronics, it was much higher. Certain other categories, it was smaller. But on an average, it was 3 to 5%. And this was eye-opening for me because common sense said that would be the case. But to see a massive impact, like with a simple order promising solution that just aimed to give an exact delivery promise, has such an impact on sales, was fascinating for me. So I think what Nextuple is doing is to think about order promising as a microservice and help retailers really get dialed down into knowing what their network can do. Because a lot of times I think the retailers or other brands don't give a precise promise because they don't trust their own network. They don't trust the capacity they have to ship something. They don't trust the carriers to deliver something in the time they promise they can do. And lots of buffers get added in, things get added in. So the delivery becomes very loose, conservative. And if you're able to actually understand your network fully and actually capture that into your promising service, you can get much better on terms of when can I get something from point A to point B, and what's the risk that I need to add into that. And that's precisely what we're trying to do. Now, we've added a layer on top of it where we can also look at predictive, because I think it's much easier to look at your own network, your own stores, and your own fulfillment centers. But when you're dealing with a marketplace vendor or a dropship vendor who's shipping, you're not part of your network, it's hard to sometimes exactly say how long they're going to take to fulfill something. So predictive aspects of it, putting in AI ML to predict that is going to also improve your promising accuracy. So that's one of the things, many things in order management that we are trying to really dial down and improve is order promising.
It's interesting you mentioned that the internal side of the causing of the delays for adding buffers, because for me, I just thought, well, it's a carrier issue. But you're talking about a lot of companies don't even trust their own internal estimates of when things are going to be moved around to certain places. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think this comes to, especially true for stores, when you look at stores as doubling as meeting the walk-in customers' needs, as well as, you're using your store labor to fulfill online orders. It is an unpredictable environment in a store. That is, how long is it going to take for you to pick something which is small item versus what's a large item? How much, backroom space do you have to, keep items so that you can pack and ship those items? There's a lot of variability there. So it's really important to know what your capacity is. And if you don't have adequate capacity, you're likely to slip on your promises. So it's not just about the carriers, but internal fulfillment network is also a large factor in that.
Yeah. Now, your company offers an omnichannel ordering system, and it's quite evident on your website. You emphasize the microservices element of it. Now, I know what that is, having worked in a cloud computing company. But without getting too technical, why would an organization not simply work with their existing POS provider to implement what your solution offers in terms of predictability and all the good stuff that you mentioned? It doesn't seem on the face of it to require a new solution.
And I think the answer is, it might sound a little long-winded, but let me go back a couple of decades when what we call distributed order management really evolved. This was as part of the e-commerce drive. Retailers were starting to sell things online, ship things to the customers, buy online, pick up in store, click and collect. That's really when distributed order management systems really emerged in this market space. And what happened is that the new needs were identified, such as inventory accuracy, inventory availability, order promising, your returns management, your payment integration, fraud. All of these got lumped into what we now think of as a legacy distributed order management system. What that has done is that, one, I think it is older technology, so it's hard to use that older tech to innovate and put in new kind of services in there. The second thing is that I think if you look at one of the order management implementations, you'll see it's the heart of your order fulfillment, meaning it's got tentacles all over to connections to multiple systems. So anything that you want to change is complex, and it's touching too many things, and it becomes harder for you to innovate, implement changes to your order management system because your legacy tech is preventing you from it. So the way that we think about it is that microservices provide simplicity. Yeah, it may look complex from the outside when you see different services, different tech stacks, all of that, but really it draws a clean boundary around the problem and the solution. So if it is inventory supply that you're tracking, there is a service for that. If it's inventory availability that you're interested in, there is a service for that. If it is order payment integration, there's a service for that. So order promising, for example, as we've been talking, is its own service. It has its own APIs that other systems talk to the service with, and you have now the ability to innovate, enhance, even in A/B test that service independent of everything else that's going on. That's actually the power of microservices. While it may seem like the system landscape becomes more complex, it provides a lot of simplicity in terms of ownership of functionality versus your ability to act fast and in time to market.
Yeah. So you're saying that a customer looking to solve this problem can come to you and they don't have to rip and replace everything. They can add modules that you offer.
Absolutely, and that is exactly the way Nextuple has approached this. We have, although we are an OMS provider, we have end-to-end order management services. We have not approached this as saying that you need to rip and replace your entire legacy tech stack. Rather, we have always looked at the problem first. What are you trying to solve for? Are you looking at improving conversion? Are you trying to look at improving your inventory accuracy at your store level? Whatever the problem is, and I think we are coming with a microservice approach to either enhance, augment, or replace your current solutions, and that's worked well for us.
Yeah, well, it definitely has, because I was looking at some case studies on your site. You've got Dick's Sporting Goods in the US, which a lot of people will know, Kohl's, Disney, Reebok, Brooks Brothers, some massive names there. Can you talk about maybe one or two what problems you actually solved?
I can talk about, I think BJ's Wholesale Club is, one of the public case studies that we have put out there. We have, over the past year and a half, we have completely replaced their legacy inventory service with what we call our digital inventory service, the Nextuple inventory tech stack, which provides three distinct microservices: one for supply and demand tracking, one for availability promising, so the website can actually have a control over what items should be in stock, what should be taken out of stock, all of that in real time, as well as a very comprehensive audit and reconciliation system, which allows them to track changes to inventory, go back and even troubleshoot issues that they had. You thought you had an item in stock, the picker went to the location, could not find something, what happened, those kind of things, and keeping our inventory picture in sync with everything else, including the ERP. That's been major success story for us to completely replace the tech stack legacy inventory system for BJ's Wholesale. It's been a very successful story for us, resulting in not only improved accuracy but also less cancellations for customers.
Fantastic. I'd love to know about the origin story of Nextuple, because you've had a major role at Walmart from 2010 to 2018 in digital transformation and head of digital experience for their grocery side. So did you found the company because you saw some major gaps there, or what was the story?
When I left Walmart, Nextuple was not on my mind. It was a career break for me. One of the reasons why I took a break is because I have a special needs son, and I was looking at getting some additional treatment for him and more options for his education. It just happened to be the same time when my co-founders getting started with a new venture called Nextuple, and we happened to connect, talk about it, and we were very clear that we wanted to do something different in the retail omnichannel space. And I thought these were people that I had known for 20 plus years, and I just jumped at that opportunity. And that's really the origin story. It was not planned while I was at Walmart or anything like that.
You've got the battle scars of 20 years of shipping stuff around. Excellent stuff. So before I move on to some other points, I mean, obviously you mentioned some case studies and you talked about a public one. What's the ideal customer profile for you guys?
So majority of our customers have been in the tier 1 to 2 retail in North America. However, we are increasingly starting to work with wholesalers, distributors, even 3PLs in the space. So I would say the ideal customer base is still retail or grocery. I think we have equally served both these verticals. Ideally, like I said earlier, someone with stores and online looking to grow your online presence, so someone who's concerned about growing the online sales, and also making sure that if the customer is switching from physical to e-com, they're sticking with your brand, someone who's concerned about that. So retention, someone who's looking to retain the customer base, but also very cost conscious. So getting higher revenues and sales is great, but also how do you do it efficiently and in optimized way. So that's really the sweet spot for us, where we think about how our solutions can really understand your network and help you optimize your order fulfillment in that.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to throw you some curveballs.
Sure.
To talk about challenges that are faced by many retailers all around the world at the moment, and it would be good to get your comments on how you're helping or your thoughts as well. So first one is self-checkouts. So we saw a big rollout of them over the past few years, and now I've read many stories in the US. A lot of retailers are ripping them out. And in the UK, we're talked about in terms of theft and people putting through cheaper items than expensive ones. So it's not quite a rip and replace yet here. So that's one issue. And the other big one is high cost of returns for e-com. Maybe you can talk about how you're helping with those two issues, because they seem to be quite commonly discussed as well in a lot of retail media.
Okay, let's tackle the first one, which is the self-checkout. There are initiatives called Scan and Go and other things that folks have come out with. I think more than shrink, it's a really difficult solution to get right. Meaning, you're basically allowing your customers to use your app, scan items at the store, and walk out with a receipt, digital receipt, unless you have really made sure that it can be error free to a large percentage of the time. You're always dealing with someone who will have to help you out with that self checkout process. And if 1 in 3 of those transactions lead to somebody helping out, then what's the point of the self checkout in the first place? I think my own experience, I don't know about all the retailers, but few that I have dealt with, it's still not at that level where you can the it's truly self-service, where you can actually get everything that you have in the store checked out through your app. Plus the shrink, that's the public reason that is given to a lot of the companies backing out, is that shrink is high with self-checkout. But to a large extent, companies like Walmart have done a pretty good job in making Scan and Go work seamlessly for the Walmart shoppers with an app. Let me address the returns question. I think your question was, how do retailers deal with the high amount of returns? Is that what's the question?
Just how obviously it's a big problem. So how are you helping retailers through your solution to address that?
I mean, I don't believe we have a direct solution to address the returns problem, but what we have done is to help retailers anticipate and plan for the returns. So if you look at, I think the key is to understand what is your returns landscape looking like. If you're blind to it, I think you're going to run into problems with excess stock, things coming back and sitting in the store shelf. So if you're able to plan for it, This is where you in apparel and fashion, for example, when there is 30 to 35% of returns, if you can anticipate that percentage and if you can apply that to your available to promise in the future, that goes a long way in terms of helping you plan for how much additional do you need to replenish and buy. So I think that is one way that we're helping, is to forecast and then apply the returns, anticipated returns to your future available to promise. Yeah, but there's a lot more to be done in the return space.
Great stuff. Thanks for that. I want to move on to a couple of points you touched on earlier, which was really good to hear. You said you're not just dealing with retail, but also I think you said warehousing, distribution, but I think that more generally means B2B and wholesale. So it's great to see that you're tackling that space. Is that quite a small part of your business, or is growing, or where are we at in that area?
It is an emerging part of our business, and I think if you look at retail, I'll just come back to retail for a second. Like I said, early 2000s was where retailers really plunged into the omni-channel world, started putting in distributed order management systems. Some of the pioneers, right, some of the leaders in the space. 2005 to 2015, I call that as the period when the followers adopted omni-channel truly and started putting in the systems. B2B is a step behind all of this, where I think for the longest time, B2B has stayed away from large scale tech modernization. And as a result, if you look at the B2B space in general, you see a lot of ERP systems, a lot of inflexibility. And when these companies are thinking digital first, they don't have the flexibility to modify or enhance their tech stack to support the digital business. And that's the wave that we are starting to see, is that the B2B companies are now looking at modernization, that 3 to 5 year journey to get to a point where they can retire their legacy tech stack and get onto a modern platform. So I would say it's an emerging trend. For us, it's a new line of business, and there's a lot to be discovered there, and Nextuple is well prepared to support that segment.
Excellent. Yeah, I've seen elements of it over the last sort of 2 years, but gone a bit quiet recently in terms of what I've been reading in the press. Maybe those companies are just busy building out and getting out there and getting stuck in and implementing their solutions.
Yeah. And I would say, macroeconomic conditions wise, it is a slow period for whether it's, you're a B2B or or retail. Decision making is extremely, slow at this point of time. Sales cycles are much longer. So, I think, that applies to whether you're a B2B or a B2C. The same, conditions apply. We do think things are picking up at this point of time. And as we look at, 2025 or beyond, we do see a potential for a change in this setup.
Well, I do want to talk about the future. But before I do, I wanted to ask, is there anything important that you wanted to get across that I've completely missed at the moment?
Well, I think one of the things that I would like to mention is about Nextuple and our core philosophy. We are, as Nextuple, the founders are, 20, 25 plus years in the space. We are a bunch of passionate individuals. We are very, very passionate about the order management problems, solving these problems for our customers. And we've also founded a community called Order Management Gurus. That's something, a LinkedIn community. It's about a year old. We have about 2,000 members. These are order management practitioners, users, experts in the space. We try to bring them all together into discussions on LinkedIn, but also more importantly, we try to set up this monthly panel discussions where we bring experts into discuss specific topics. We just did a topic on order payments a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to do something on returns in a few days here. But that's a community that I would encourage, if your listeners are interested in the order management space, that would be a great community to look up. You can look for Order Management Gurus LinkedIn community, and you can find us there.
Great, thank you. So now we will move on to the future. I think it's a given that I was going to ask about AI and what you think is going to happen there. But it'd be great to hear from you what other things you think are going to happen, or you're seeing happen already and the audience might not be aware of.
Yeah, I think, before I talk about AI, general retail trend that we observe is that the store real estate is increasingly being converted into fulfillment space. And that's not new news. Retailers have been doing that for a while. But you would actually start seeing a lot more of that going into the future. If you look at a Best Buy store for today, it's a much different format than how it looked about 10 years ago. There's a lot more focus on display, but fulfillment is kind of separated. Bigger back rooms, redesign of stores where your stores can function as mini fulfillment centers. That's a trend I would expect to continue seeing as we go forward to 2025. More, I think there is likely to be more focus on local fulfillment, meaning if you have a group of stores in a market, how do you really think about that as a market, not as a single store, looking at transferring inventory from one store to another for click and collect, or hub and spoke model for you to pool inventory and ship to your customers. These things are likely to pick up. Some of the top retailers are already doing it, but we would expect that to be a trend going forward as well. In terms of tech, I do think we are in a 10-year cycle, replacement cycle for order management. Speaking of order management, and companies that have implemented a tech for order management about 10-15 years ago, this is the wave where they're looking to replace and come up with modern tech stack. That's likely to continue. B2B is likely to, like I said earlier, continue to emerge as a growing market. Speaking about AI, I get asked this question a lot as to what's the application of AI ML in order management, post-purchase experience. There is a lot, but I would also say that it's there's a lot of potential, but it's untapped at this point of time. So if you look at what software providers or companies have done with AI in the post-purchase space, you can pick and choose a few things, like predictive order promising, great. Predictive inventory accuracy, predictions in stock, out of stock, limited stock. There are a few things folks have done this, but there is potential to do a lot more. I think the personalization drive that we've seen on the commerce side, where hyper personalized, knowing you as a customer sat, what your preferences would be, what are the things that you're likely to buy, and just focusing on selling you that to how you now fulfill in a very personalized fashion. How do you control the post-purchase experience? How does SAT like to hear about your order, like whether it's an SMS message once a day, what that is, how do you like to, which items would you like to be substituted with if you don't have an item that is. I think those are the things which will have legs going forward. There's going to be more focus on hyper personalized order management or fulfillment on the back end.
Well, one thing I'd love to see, and I just do not understand why nobody, and I mean manufacturers, haven't done this. And maybe you can help me to understand. So to me, there's not much value in necessarily going into a store and getting something right then and there for everything, right? Obviously, groceries, you want them immediately. If you're going out in the evening, you want to buy certain things, right? Fair enough. But for most things, I don't understand why manufacturers are not setting up showrooms. And so they have one of everything that they make there in the store, but you order it online, either from them or anywhere else. Because you'd massively increase the number of shops, and you'd get your products and the full range in front of more people. But the cost of those shops will fall through the floor because you're not having any inventory stored there. So why hasn't showrooming taken off? Because a lot of people simply look at things in shops and then buy it online. I don't understand why that hasn't taken off.
It is. I think it may be at the verge of taking off. Companies who deal with larger items like furniture, like Williams Sonomas of the world, have tried to do that, quite successfully in the past. And Best Buy is trying to do that. And I do feel like there is going to be an increasing, drive towards showroom, see the item, experience the item, even just with the TV, sound system, whatever that is, and then just scan the QR code to buy. That's I agree with you. It's not taken off, but I do think it is likely to take off in the future.
Yeah, I mean that will solve the returns problem too, because the amount people are spending on dealing with the returns is probably because they don't know if it's right if all you can see is an image online.
Exactly. Yes.
And there's other little things too which I don't understand, like images. If an e-commerce site is buying products from a big company and then selling them. They use the stock images that they give them. But a lot of time you want to know relative to something else how big that item is. So maybe not a laptop because you know how big a 15-inch laptop is, but if you're buying a pen or this or that, you want to see the size in relation to something you know, like a Bic pen. And this is one example. So even the photography, just basic things that companies are just still not doing to help themselves.
Absolutely. There's a long way to go to get the digital marketing and the merchandising piece right for online. Some folks have cracked it, but there's still a long way to go there.
Yeah, tons of opportunity, at least for 10 years for you guys.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, if people want to get in touch with your company, so it's nextuple.com, so NEXTUP for Peter, LE.com. And on Twitter, you guys are Nextuple Inc. If a company wants to engage with your organization, how long does an engagement typically take? Is it easy to get started? What's the process?
We pride ourselves in the fact that we can turn on a solution in less than 4 months. Of course, it depends on the complexity and the number of services, microservices that we're talking about here. But our track record has been that from the first engagement, to discovery to getting someone live on a new solution, it could be as less like as 3 to 4 months. Typically, we start with once the the sales cycle is done, we start with a discovery, and that can be as simple as 2 weeks, where we work with our customers to truly understand, map out. That's the time when we map integrations as well as the solution design. And then we get into the build, configuration, and deployment. And if it's a SaaS product that we offer, so we do provide flexibility in how we deliver our solutions. So we've got our own SaaS setup where you can turn this on and we host it and we run it for you. We do the monitoring, support, managed services, all of that. But also, if you were to if you are you're a big AWS shop and you prefer to host software on your own cloud, we equally support our software to be hosted on your cloud. We can still provide services for you in terms of monitoring and support of all that, but it could be still hosted on your cloud. So we provide scripts for you to do that. So there is some variability and optionality there, but typically about 4 months is an ideal ballpark for what it takes for us to launch a solution in the market.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate that, Das. Got a big growth run ahead of you. Any plans to IPO?
Not yet. I think IPO is probably, we haven't really thought about the way we operate. We don't think about our exit. We think about doing the right for the customer. And, that's what has gotten us this far. And, we believe we continue doing the same thing, we'll be successful as a company.
I always like to finish on something light. It'd be great to know what you're watching or reading or listening to right now. Doesn't have to be work related.
All right. I'm not watching anything. I think I've done with my binge watching phase of TV shows. But I'm reading a very interesting book called Storyworthy. Oh. It's by an author called Matthew Dix. My wife recommended it for me. It's a well written book. It's about how do you tell a story? The simplest of things in your life. And how do you use that to create a story and tell that in a way that audience can relate to it and appreciate it. I found it to be a fascinating read. So far, I've not finished it yet, but it's a great read. Whether you're talking to your customers, whether you're talking to your employees, whether you're talking to your partners, I think that applies equally. So Storyworthy is a great read.
Storyworthy. Okay, thanks. I've not heard of that one. Appreciate it. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Das. Really appreciate it. And all the best to you in the future.
Thank you, Sat. Great chat. I enjoyed it.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.